Hey, what's up YouTube? Chris Gardiner here. Today I'm going to show you how we can make some really easily completed map animations for our real estate projects, and it gives you full control over whatever your background map image is here. Now for the purposes of this demonstration, I just grabbed a Google Maps of Collingwood, Ontario here, and you can obviously use any kind of map, satellite. Typically, you might be grabbing off of OpenStreetMap, maybe, since I was in a forum today and I see a lot of people did not want to use Google for this. Some people do, some people don't, and I think that's fine. Here's another great alternative. So this is kind of, how it works. You can see we can make a pretty decent route. We've got some camera movement. Obviously we can change this color here, and nice smooth turns, pretty good path fitting, which you are completely in control of. And yeah, so it's actually not as hard as you might think. Things like this, they might sell on a marketplace for $60. I'm going to show you how you can do it pretty darn quick here, and then you can decide if you need to get that extra product or not. So let's get out of Final Cut and into Apple Motion. Apple Motion, by the way, costs about $60, and it's basically, I would say, a large percentage of your plugins that you buy can be built in that yourself. So I think everyone should have it if you use Final Cut Pro. Okay, so we are in Apple Motion. Here we go. This is the project itself, the one I'm just showed you in Final Cut Pro. This is the actual project file. So when you look at it, it's super duper simple. I've got a mandatory build in and an optional build out, because basically what happens is we start from a flat photo 1920, or it'll crop to 1920 by 1080. And then here we go, animation is basically done, just some camera stuff floating around. I want to make sure that mostly, this part is not ever rushed. I want it to stay nice and smooth like that. And so that's why I make it a mandatory build-in. And then we go, boom, smoother motion where we hopefully see the whole map. This is, obviously cropping a tiny bit, but your points may vary, or will vary, obviously, and you will, start to compose your map pictures in a way that they look good, which is typically, for the animation of this camera, it's kind of, if you can get your body, your main information in this bottom kind of third, I guess, or even bottom quadrant, then I think that's a great place to put your primary information, destination, whatever you really can right there. Maybe not always possible, of course, but good to think about. Anyways, we have an optional build out so that it doesn't have to return to flat again, but that's how these keyframes do the animation. And the line disappears and we go back to 0. So it could be looping, basically, is what we have, because it starts and ends in a similar frame. Now, what's coming next is we will just run over this in a brand new project. So let's go. So new project, we are going to, I am going to go with 24 frames per second in 1080p, because that's what I typically deliver most. We can also change this. Maybe you plan to make this a much shorter segment. Maybe you're not going to run any text over it, and you could have it closer in the 4 to 6 second length. Maybe I'm going to just leave it as 10 as a generator, because I think generators do well on the main timeline, where something like a title might do well at this as well. But I feel like titles belong on top of the timelines, on top of the main primary timeline, storyline, whatever. So open. Start off with this one. Let's call it map, and this is one of the easiest parts of the whole thing. We are going to add a drop zone, and we can call this one our map content, and that's basically done. All right. Now another thing we are going to do is add a new group, and this one will be called line. So this is going to be a simple animation. It's going to be what we edit most often inside Final Cut Pro. So this is where we kind of move our points around and stuff. So I made that separate. And finally, in order to give it some 3D function, we are going to add a camera. It's going to switch everything to 3D. All right. So first, let's get through the process of adding our camera. Sorry, not the camera. We're going to add our line and the animation, because that's, relatively simpler compared to the other step. So let's go fit in here. Add Bezier curve. Now this one obviously you're going to change. I just try and make it, kind of in the center, and however many points you choose is up to you. I made 10, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. For the purposes of this, let's say you can make most of your maps a little simpler. 7. Let's make it 7. How about? Good. For that, lines, we will go into Inspector, Filters, Properties. Oh, are we even on this? Okay, there. Had to finish it off. Now it's created. We have it here inside our lines. I don't really need to adjust that again, so I'm going to lock that off. I don't want to accidentally change anything. We have a weird shape. Don't worry about that. We are going to go here, turn fill off. Now we just have an outline. Brush type, image, I stick with solid. You might be able to add patterns. I don't think, maybe it could be a good effect. I'm not going to show you how to do that today. Let's pick this one. Let's go with something that's going to stand out on a lot of maps. Most maps use a lot of greens and grays. Let's not go with green. Let's go with something red. Also, a lot of the realtors I work with use a red color, so it's a safe bet for me. Brush opacity. Oh, and sorry, another thing we're going to do, just in case we work with some other realtors that have maybe a green logo, let's go publish this, and we can change it on the fly. Same with width, different scales of maps, you may want different scales of lines. So let's make that 10, published, and for our purposes, I think I like it around 20. Preserve width is generally a good idea. It's just when it comes to bends, it's going to keep things looking a little more uniform. That's not something we need to give any sort of changing to, because it should be pretty safe. Let's see, round joints. That's this end. I don't really want it jagged. Maybe you do want it jagged. It might match the map style you have or something like that. I'm going to stick with round. Start caps and end caps. Start is, the beginning of the line, the first point I clicked on to create this. And the end cap, obviously, the very last one. For the end cap, I want to give it an arrow. And just in case I want to turn that off, let's go publish so that I can change it. Maybe I just want it round in the future. And I think there's one other thing I want to do in here. Oh yeah. So when we switch into geometry, we also have roundness, and you'll see what this is doing here. So, and this is kind of, total opposite to making sharp corners. Would be kind of really smoothing those off. I like the smoother animation that will come with making a much more rounded curve or turn than if it was just a straight up 90-degree turn with this arrow. I don't think it looks that great, so I like to round them off. Okay, so that's what we're going to leave it at for now. Now, obviously, nothing's happening to this line yet. Last thing we have to do here before we start doing some animation is make sure you publish these control points so that we can change them later. Now, this isn't the best interface when you are in Final Cut Pro, but this is how you are going to be moving each point. But it's really, when you're doing 6 of them, 10 of them, it's really not that bad. You can just, it's going to be your screen, and you're going to get pretty good. It's like Etch-a-Sketch, up and down, boom, boom, with one hand, up and down with the other hand is left and right. And there you go. I've been playing with my kids at Etch-a-Sketch a little bit lately, so you know I made that analogy. So now let's do the animation of the actual path. Let's go to our very beginning. First, I'm going to shrink this. Let's make it a little easier to see what we are working on. And at the very beginning of the animation, I don't want people to see the map and just know exactly where we are going. I want to hold their attention for some short amount of time with it. And so we're going to pull that last point offset all the way to 0, create keyframe there. And I like to start off on kind of like the 3rd frame. Before any action happens, it makes it easier just in case I want to loop it in the future or something like that. And then let's say, so from the 3rd frame, and if we want it to take just over a second to complete its path animation, I could go to 46 frames, so that's 43 frames from the actual start of the animation, and we now have the line make it to the end point. And then we could have that held for some amount of time, and we could make a point there, and then the end point could chase it. Boom, and it disappears. And we can end our animation on this same frame, and we can, have this looping content. Boom, and it's gonna continually come back. Well, another thing we can do right here is let's move this. So I want to make this a marker. I'm going to go edit marker. I'm going to call this a build-in mandatory. So I don't want, no matter how long I shorten this animation to in my video, I don't really ever want it to speed up this portion. I always want to have about 49 frames to do this animation because, if I don't want to run a risk of, oops, I don't know what I did there. I don't want to run a risk of it ever being too fast that the animation just looks sloppy, messy, jittery, all that. So I am making that build-in mandatory, and then just in case sometimes if I want to hold on the final and I don't want to build out, I'm going to add one more marker, and we're going to add that marker, and we will call it a build out optional. And so now I'm going to have a little checkbox that says, yes, I want to finish this last portion, whatever I build into past this point, or let's just actually typically put it one forward to be safe. For whatever happens after this to be optional is kind of the flexibility I like to have, because it depends on what kind of scene I'm going to after occasionally. So we have that. Not a bad animation. Easy enough. Now, last, all we have to do is work with our camera. So we are going to change none of this yet. We're going to come back to that. We are going to go here. I'm going to expand this and expand this. Now, just like here, I want to start from 0. Boom, boom. And we are going to end at 0, but I don't want to do that yet because when I'm working with this, things are going to constantly keep changing as I'm working with them. Based on where I put the last keyframe and stuff, it kind of gets a little confusing. So, and then one more here. Boom, boom. And now we can start some more interesting stuff. So, we are working with the active camera. I don't actually like to do that. I want to see something that's more stuck in place and locked off there. Something I can return to. 25% in this case works pretty well. So we are starting from 0 here. We have our little pause at the beginning, and this is kind of where I want to have the most dynamic movement. And then for this portion, I want to have just some very subtle movements so that I can run a title over maybe, or who knows what. And then we have another more dynamic movement to return to, starting position. So over here, in the camera as our object, we can lock this one off too, just in case we don't want to move it. Z kind of works out to be what was your scale in a 2D space, so we can push our Z in and our picture gets bigger. I'm going to do that because it gives me more room to rotate the camera without showing this void behind it. So I don't have, black space in my picture. I want to have just map content. So here we go. Next thing we're going to do is, you see how I've got these handles here, and I can kind of move my camera based on this section. That's not natural way of thinking for me. I move my camera, so I'm going to switch this to move from the viewpoint. Now I have my handles over here, which is much more natural. I can work inside the graphical interface a little bit more. So I'm going to go to okay. So I'm in this new view. This is going to help me see, some of the side to side and down motions that I'm going to be doing, which is, kind of having the over the shoulder perspective of what your camera's doing, which is pretty natural way for me to think about moving a camera. So I like to be here. So, and you can see as we are moving the sliders, we have two views, one with our locked off perspective and then one that is showing us what the camera actually is going to see in our plugin, or our generator. And so far I've just gone with some down translation, so it's gonna okay, cool. So let's now check it out from our active camera. Last but not least, what else did I like? I like to see on this shape, where is it? No, in properties. On the shape, which I need to unlock. Drop shadow, looks good. As this is kind of an animation that is sitting on top of a map. A map is typically, traditionally was on a piece of paper. So let's make it so our animation is happening on top of that old-fashioned piece of paper. Distance is kind of the distance of, let's go over here so we can actually see what we're doing. Distance is going to kind of be you see the size of that. It doesn't need to be too far off. Blur a little bit, just soften it. And there we go. I think that's all you have to do. And now, here, this is our active camera. Let's see if I can get rid of all the handles we're seeing. Lock that off, lock that off. Alright, and here we go. Let's see how it is. Yeah, not bad. What do you think? And then animation, a little bit. Pull out, back to center, boom, and done. And then all we have to do is we can save this. I will save this as my second version, and we can I don't want to save this one because I don't think I made any changes. Oh wait, maybe I did add the drop shadow from last time, so we can save that. And we're just going to close this and open it back up. Oh no, it's already in here, so we're good. Okay, so let's get rid of this. Get that. Now, here's just some random project I was working on. And this is the map I showed you from earlier. So you always want to have your map content already brought into a library. Click on your place. Make sure you locate where your drop zone is. Keep it in screen, grab your thing, bring it over. There we go. Now here we are. This one was throwing me off because we see the black handles there. This was just a screen grab, so let's delete that so as to not confuse ourselves. So here we go. This is my map content. Let's here we go. Find our Bezier curve. Oh, you know what? I locked the Bezier on my way out of this project. And that obviously locked in Final Cut Pro. So don't do that. Alright, so back again. let us get our second version, drag it in. And maybe you have this one that's a 7 point. You see this one is more of a, it's actually 10 points. Maybe you have a 20 point, who knows? Maybe you have one that has 2 lines. Maybe you have one that has starts from a map pin or a little house icon, or you can do lots. Like, this is a very slow presentation of doing this, but you could build something this simple. I mean, I did in about 8 minutes. You could do a really awesome one in an hour, I'm sure. So let's get our drop zone filled up. Drag it in. There we go. Got it. Okay, and I like to pick a point here where we can kind of see everything. And let's just work from here. Let's see. Let's play it at real time instead of scrubbing through it. Looks like it's maybe a little bit of a jittery animation, but don't copy exactly what I did on this one. Kind of make it your own, tweak it a little bit. I kind of like what I did with this one, but I could see myself also making, that one's kind of like a bottom quadrant here. I might also make one for places that are in an upper quadrant, where it might be something that's north of a town, and I want to show, a trip south towards a point of interest. It just so happens where I live, we have a lot of bodies of water to the north of many of the places I photograph. So it made sense for me to build one from the bottom quadrant, where it had a bottom quadrant kind of focus. So let's play it out. Yeah, there's maybe a little bit of animation keyframe cleanups to do in that one. Like here, let's check this one out. So you see we kind of go a little more askew in that one. And it's a little more calm in this section, running titles. And let me pull out. So, and even this one's not perfect. Like, I don't like how I see the corner in here. You see, I don't really want to have any of that black void. Yeah, so there you go. Get started with a little map animation for your real estate videos. Pretty easy if you ask me. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch up with you on the next one. I got a little more content planned, in the works slowly over this Christmas break for myself. Real estate video and photo are slowing down, so we'll have some more for you soon. Thanks. Bye.